So, when you hear the name Janus, what pops into your head? Probably that classic image, right? The statue with two faces, one looking back, one looking forward. But that's really just scratching the surface. There's this whole other story, actually, two stories that are way deeper and kind of contradictory. So, yeah, let's get into it. Okay, so Janus wasn't just, some minor god on the list. He was a huge deal. One of the oldest, one of the most important gods in all of Rome. And what's really key here is that he was purely Roman. The Greeks didn't have a god like him. And that right there tells you something. He's tied into the very core of what it meant to be Roman. And this is where it gets really interesting, kind of mysterious, because the Romans themselves couldn't seem to agree on where he came from. They had two totally different origin stories. Was he like a human king who was so wise he got promoted to god status? Or was he something else entirely, a cosmic force that was around before anything else even existed? So you've got these two completely opposite ideas, right? On one side, he's a human ruler, a king down in ancient Italy. And on the other, he's this massive cosmic power that literally shaped the universe. How can both of those be true? It seems like they can't possibly fit together. But for the Romans, they did. Both stories were part of the whole picture. So let's start with the one that's a little easier to wrap our heads around. All right, so origin story number one. This is the one you'd hear people telling, the popular legend. And it's really a story about human progress. It plants Janus firmly on the ground in Italy as this incredible leader, a real nation builder, who was rewarded for his good deeds in a pretty mind-blowing way. So the legend goes something like this. You've got King Janus ruling from his hill. His people, they're kind of wild. So he teaches them everything: laws, farming, how to build actual cities. He basically brings civilization to the whole region of Latium. Then, one day, the god Saturn shows up. He's been kicked out of heaven by Jupiter, and Janus, being a good guy, takes him in. And that act of kindness, that's what leads to the big payoff. So, as a thank you, Saturn gives Janus this incredible gift, a superpower, really, the ability to see both the past and the future. And that's it. That's the origin of the two faces. It's this gift that turns him from just a wise mortal king into this divine guardian, the keeper of all doorways and new beginnings. But here's the twist. That story, the one about the king, that was the public version. The Roman priests, the theologians, they had a totally different idea, a much deeper, much older story about who Janus really was, a story that goes back to the very beginning of everything. Okay, so let's shift gears to origin story number two, and this one changes everything. In this telling, Janus isn't a man who becomes a god. Nope, he is the universe, before it was the universe. He's the raw creative force that literally pulled order out of nothingness. The poet Ovid writes about this. He basically says Janus was chaos. That swirling, formless mess before creation? So his power wasn't just seeing the future. It was way bigger. It was the power to shape that chaos into an orderly cosmos. His first job wasn't ruling a little kingdom. It was separating fire from water, earth from air, creating the entire structure of reality as we know it. And that's why he got this amazing title, Divum Deus, which means God of Gods. Now, that doesn't mean he was Jupiter's boss. It means he came before Jupiter, before all of them. He was the first step. Think about it. No other god could even come into being until Janus, the original doorkeeper, opened the very first door for creation itself. So, how do you mash these two stories together? The down-to-earth king and the cosmic creator. Well, they combined to define his ultimate job, the doorkeeper. Because he was both, because he understood building a city and building a universe, he became the perfect god to oversee every single transition. I mean, from something as small as a baby being born to something as huge as a star igniting. And of course, he had the right tools for the job. Those two faces, they let him look at the past for wisdom and the future for what's possible all at once. That key he's always holding, that could unlock a new door in your life or lock an old one for good. And the staff, that was his guide's tool to help you get through those tricky, in-between times safely. And this wasn't just some abstract idea, by the way. It was physically built right into the center of Rome. In the Roman Forum, there was a structure called the Janus Geminis. But here's the thing. It wasn't really a temple where you'd go to worship. It was more like a sacred gate, a real-life doorway for the entire Roman state. And what it did was super simple but so powerful. It was like a status indicator for the entire empire. If the gates were open, Rome was at war. The idea was that Janus himself was out on the battlefield with the soldiers. But if the gates were closed, that meant peace. Total empire-wide peace. Now get ready for this. In over 700 years of Roman history, how many times do you think those gates were closed? Only 7. Just 7 times. That number tells you everything you need to know about Rome, doesn't it? Peace was this incredibly rare, special thing. The normal state of being was war, constant transition.
But Janus's influence went way beyond just war and peace. He was part of the very fabric of everyday Roman life. He was in their rituals, their prayers, and even in the way they thought about time itself.
I mean, he was number 1. In every single prayer, the Romans would call on Janus first, even before Jupiter. The logic was you have to go through the doorkeeper before you can talk to anyone else, right? He was there for all the big firsts in a person's life, getting married, having a baby, and, of course, the most obvious connection for us, his name is right there at the start of our own calendar, January, the doorway to the new year. So, when you boil it all down, Janus was so much more than just a god to pray to. He was a principle, an idea. To the Romans, he was a living symbol of a fundamental truth, that if you want to make any progress in your own life, in society, whatever, you have to get good at handling change. You have to be able to cross those thresholds. So, in the end, the big lesson from Janus is that every doorway, every transition is a moment of real power. It's where the past meets the future. And that leaves us with a question that's just as real for us now as it was for the Romans. Every time one door closes, another one opens. So, what's the next door you're going to walk through?